What I want to dig in a bit in this video is student debt. And I'll start off with some averages. So at the time of making this video, the average debt, the average balance that an American student graduates with is $27,000. Now, this isn't necessarily the entire cost of their education. They might have gotten help from other folks. They might have had a work study. Maybe their parents helped out. Maybe they got a scholarship from someone. But this is the average student loan balance. And once again, just an average. Some people might have a lot more than this. Some people might not have any student loan balance. And the other averages is that the average term for a student loan, so this is the time period over which you are expected to pay it off, is 10 years. And once again, these might change over time, but I'll use this as a reasonably good example to frame our discussion. And at the time of making this video, and this is likely to change over time, but the average interest rate is 6.8% at the time of making this video. And if you take these inputs, and there are student loan calculators, payment calculators on the internet. In fact, you could even use mortgage calculators. If you say it's a 10-year term, you're borrowing $27,000, and it's a 6.8% interest rate, and you zero out all of the other assumptions, then the payment that you would have, this is obviously isn't a mortgage, but it's the same idea. You're borrowing some amount of money, you have an interest rate, and you want to pay the whole thing off out over some type of a term. So if you were to input all of that into a kind of a loan payment calculator, you would get that the average monthly payment given these assumptions are going to be a little over $310 per month. And so let's just think a little bit about, if we make these assumptions, how easy or hard this might be to pay off. And then we can start to stretch these assumptions a little bit. What if your balance is 4 times this? So I looked up some more averages. So this is kind of what you have to pay. This is the debt. So let's think about income and expenses. Income and expenses. So the average, and once again, this is at the time of making this video. I encourage you to look it up just to verify that what the averages might be whenever you happen to watch this. But the average income for a college grad at the time of making this, maybe I should write average salary. Average salary is $45,000. $45,000. And then I looked up the average paycheck. Average paycheck, which they have as $1,299. And actually, let's see if that actually makes sense. So if I'm making $45,000, and if I assume I have biweekly paychecks, so I'm going to have 26, there's 52 weeks in a year, so I'm going to have a paycheck on half of them, so I'm going to have 26 paychecks in a year. That means that I'm going to, my salary before paying taxes and other things is going to be $1,730. And so this actually makes sense, because if you were to take, let's see, this looks like it's about, let's see, if we say 1,299 divided by 1730, it's about 75%. So this is assuming that you're paying about 25% and of your effective tax rate is about 25%, and that includes your state, your federal income tax, and your Social Security benefits, and all of that. And so this seems actually like the numbers right over here make sense. But we have a few more averages. So let's see, this average paycheck, and let's just translate everything to a monthly basis. So this is going to be approximately $2,600 a month. This is your average take home pay. So you're going to have 26, if you're making $45,000 and you have all these other assumptions, that means that the average college grad has $2,600 a month to pay all of their expenses and hopefully also have some savings. So now let's think about the expense side of things. So most people's largest expense is housing, and the average rent at the time of making this video is $821. Now, this is the average across the United States. You could imagine if you're in a high rent place like New York or San Francisco and you're not living with 3 people in the same room, you're going to have to pay a lot more than this. But let's just go with the averages. So you have that rent right over there. And now let's just make some other assumptions. Let's say transportation also tends to be a pretty significant expense. Let's say between your car and gas and maintenance, you have to spend $300 a month in transportation. And obviously you can tweak these assumptions if you think they're too high or too low, or if you want to drive a fancy car, or maybe you can use public transportation and this would be lower. And then of course you have to feed yourself. And so let's say you spend $100 a week, which isn't an exorbitant amount to spend on food. So you could probably spend less if you cooked a lot. But let's see, $400 would be on the per month, 4 weeks in a year. So about 4 weeks in a month. So you're going to spend $400 a month on food. And then let's see, what does that leave you with? So that leaves you with, $2,600 minus $821 minus $300 minus $400. That leaves you with, $1,079. That leaves you with $1,079. Now you might say, hey, this is pretty good. I have $1,079, but we have a couple of expenses that we haven't paid for yet. We haven't paid our average student loan balance. So let's subtract that out. So my previous answer minus 310.72 gets us $768. And you would say, okay, well, that's pretty good. I'm saving $768 per month. But of course, we haven't put any fun in here. You haven't gone to the movies yet. You're going to a show or hanging out with friends or whatever it might be. And so if you put an entertainment budget in there, and we could, depends on, I guess, how much you like to party. But let's say that that's just $200 a month, $50 a week, which sounds actually pretty economical. So that gets you to $568. So you still have some savings. That's not bad, especially early in your career. If you're able to put some money aside, this is pretty good. Now, what I want to keep in mind is this is given these assumptions. So now let's stretch these assumptions a little bit. For example, if instead of your student loan balance being $27,000, if your student loan balance is, say, 4 times that, and it was $108,000, now all of a sudden, this $310 is going to be 4 times as high as well. So that's going to be approximately $1,240. And so if this was your student loan balance, now all of a sudden this world looks a lot worse. Before having fun and before paying off your loans, you only have $1,079, which is less than what you have to pay for your loans. And now you might say, oh, maybe, I make more money than that. And that's definitely possible. And especially as you get more and more experience and get more and more skills in the workforce, your income could go more. But you just have to keep in mind you're going to have to, there's an expectation that you pay this if your balance is $108,000 from the get-go. So it's not even where you're going to get to, it's where you are going to start. You're going to have to find a reasonable way to pay this amount. The other things that you're going to have to really, really think about are these assumptions right over here. The average salary, you might have a point in time where you're between jobs, where you want to explore something. So that's a very important thing to take into consideration. And of course, what we already mentioned, this rent number is an average for the nation. But if you live in a urban area, especially an expensive urban area, your rent could be substantially more than this. And frankly, all of your other expenses are probably going to be more than this. And so you can see when your debt becomes more, and this is a debt number that there are definitely a lot of folks with debt numbers like this, you have to feel comfortable that you're going to be in a situation upon graduation where you can make this type of payment after your necessities, after food and living and transportation. So not saying student debt is good or bad. I tend to think that an education is a very, very good thing. It's a very good investment. It's one of the best assets that you can have. But any asset, you should always be thoughtful about how much you're going to pay for it and what type of a return you can get and whether you can pay for it. And so hopefully this just gives you a little bit of a framework for thinking about that.